Auzubillahiminshaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Very good evening to all of my students. Today I am going to teach you about the poetry and how we can understand poetry in a proper way. And poetry is that form of a literature or the genre of the literature in which our inner feelings are expressed by the poets, by the writers, world around. But my topic is that how to understand the poetry. That's a question. If we want to understand the poetry, the genre of the literature, then we will have to go through the various fundamental techniques of the poetry. And the fundamental poetics, rather, we can say the figure of speech or the poetic techniques which are used in the poetry. Without wasting too much time, I would start my topic uh, with this intention that you should go through all these things before going to understand a poem or any sort of a poetry, that you will be able to understand the poetry only and only with the help of poetic techniques. So, first thing in the poetry is uh, that is rhymes. And rhyme refers to the similarity of the terminal sounds that can be in within the line, or that can be in the two same lines, or that can be repeated after first line and to the fourth line or the third line. It depends upon the poet that how he can choose the rhyme scheme, if his intention is writing a good poetry. But it simply means the rhyme simply means the similarity of a terminal sound in a particular line. Then we have rhythm. Rhythm is one of the important thing that is in the poetry, especially in the poetry of Urdu, and that is that rhythm is formed from the stressed or the unstressed syllables of a poem. But this is especially in the Urdu literature. Then we have one of the important factor that you have to understand, that is metaphor. Metaphor is one of the typical technique, rather we can say a basic fundamental poetic technique which every poet has to utilize in his poetry. And metaphor means it is the figure of speech, or it is the poetic technique in which the direct comparison is formed between the two like objects, likewise objects, or between the unlike objects. For example, I will say uh, he is a lion, he is a Shah Rukh Khan, she is a moon, she is a Katrina Kaif. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि मैंने उस आदमी को डायरेक्ट कंपेयर किया शाहरुख खान के साथ, मैंने उस आदमी को डायरेक्ट कंपेयर किया शेर के साथ. सो इसका मतलब हो गया शी इज़ अ मून, तो इसका मतलब है वो चांद जैसी है. ठीक. तो चांद जैसी नहीं, चांद है। समझ आ रही बात? तो अगर हमने उसका डायरेक्ट कंपैरिजन किया तो वहां पर जो मेटाफर इस्तेमाल हो गया, दैट्स मून। जब मैंने कहा ही इज ए लॉइन, तो लॉइन इज द मेटाफर। शी इज अ मून, तो मून इज द मेटाफर। ही इज अ शाहरुख खान, तो शाहरुख खान इज द मेटाफर इन द in this in this metaphor. तो उसके बाद अगर हम और भी कुछ बोलेंगे इसके बारे में, तो ये भी हम कह सकते हैं शी इज़ अ बटरफ्लाई। देन वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट in the poetry is simile. Simile is a figure of speech, or rather we can say poetic technique, in which there is an indirect comparison between the two objects, whether they can be the different nature of objects, but there is an indirect comparison between the two objects. For example, I will say uh, mm, she she is she runs as fast as deer. She He runs as fast as lion. He is like a moon. She is like a star. She is like a Katrina cave. So two words are there, as and like. As and like, these two words are usually used in the simile. And when these words are used, it means that this is not meant for the direct comparison. This is just meant for the indirect comparison. When we say she's like a moon, means she's not perfectly a moon, but she's looking like a moon. He runs as fast as lion, means that the person has the ability, person has the capacity, person has the power to run as much as the lion runs. समझ आ रही है बात? तो इसका मतलब है कि इसमें हमें कोई यानी कि इनडायरेक्ट कंपैरिजन मिल रहा है कि वो शेर जैसा है, वो चांद जैसी है, वो उतना ही तेज दौड़ता है जितना शेर दौड़ता है। तो इसमें सिर्फ दो वर्ड्स का ख्याल रखना है कि एज एंड लाइक आर द सिमिली वर्ड्स। Then we have one of the important thing that's in the poetry, that is the personification. And personification is a figure of speech uh, in which uh, uh, in which in which inanimate objects are abstract objects are treated as like humans. Two inanimate objects are treated as they have the human existence. For example, I will say, uh, death lays icy hands on kings. Death lays icy hands on kings. Sometimes we can say, the sun smiled down on us. The sun smiled down on us. Sometimes we can say, uh, the storm clouds angrily gathered. अब देखिए इसमें हमने ह्यूमन एग्जिस्टेंस कैसे दिया। पहली लाइन में मैंने बोला डेथ लेज आईसी हैंड्स, सिंपली डेथ इज नॉन लिविंग थिंग, एंड दे उसको हमने कंपैरिजन किया कि उसके आईसी हैंड्स से, एंड दैट लेज ऑलवेज ऑन द किंग्स। दूसरा पॉइंट हमने कहा द सन स्माइल्ड डाउन ऑन अस। सन वहां से कहाँ देखेगा? समझ आ रही बात? मीन्स दैट वी हैव गिवन द सन, और दिस वी कैन से डेथ, द ह्यूमन एग्जिस्टेंस। और उसके बाद मैंने कहा द स्टॉर्म क्लाउड्स एंगरली गैदर्ड। Angrily means angrily is used for the human existence. Sometimes I can be angry with anyone, so it's my nature. So when we give some abstract ideas a human existence, it means that that is the sign of personification. Then we have another thing, that is the important thing in the poetry, that's oxymoron. Oxymoron is a figure of speech in which two words have the contradictory meaning. Oxymoron is a word or is a figure of speech that's always used in the poetry, but they have the contradictory meaning. For example, I will say this the sound of silence. It's also a example of oxymoron. Bittersweet, loving hate. So these are the words when they show contradictory meaning. For example, we say this the sound of silence. If there is silence, how there can be sound? If something is sweet, how that can be bitter? So we have used the word bittersweet. Then we have the loving hate. For example, if you love me, then how it's possible that you hate me at the same time? So it is the word oxymoron is the word or a figure of speech that's always used in the poetry. It means that they have the contradictory meaning in itself. Then we have one of the important, we can say, one of the important poetic technique, that is hyperbole. Hyperbole is a poetic technique in which there is always exaggeration. Sometimes you say a small little thing, you give too much importance to that very thing, and that becomes exaggerated. And when there is exaggeration in a particular statement uttered by a person, uttered by a poet in a particular form of poetry, even though that has a less importance, but the poet or the person has given it too much importance in an exaggerated way, and that is the hyperbole statement. Now, I would quote here one of the poem of Wordsworth, Daffodils, when he says, 10,000 saw I at gallons, means that how we have counted the daffodils. So, daffodils are countless, but usually I have used the word 10,000 saw I at a gallons, means that this is a line from the poem Daffodils, and it shows you a sort of exaggeration. Then we have another point that is very important in the poetry, that's alliteration. Alliteration means the repetition of initial consonant sounds in a particular line. Remember it कि ये एक ऐसा एलिट्रेशन एक ऐसा अमल है या पोइटिक टेक्निक है जिसमें हम एक लाइन के इनिशियल कॉन्सोनेंट लेटर्स को काउंट करते हैं या देखे जाते हैं. Means that it is a process in which the initial consonant letters are formed, or it is the repetition of initial consonants of a line in a particular with particular words. For example, I will say in the merry month of March. In the merry month of March. So the line is जैसे इसमें मेरी आ गया, then month आ गया, then March आ गया. So three times the word has been used, M M M, merry month of March. So what is it? It is a example of, it's an example of the alliteration. Then we have an important thing that is very important in our literature, or that is we can say in the genre of poetry, that's ambiguity. Ambiguity is a poetic technique or a figure of speech. It can be applied in the prose, it can be applied in anything that you want. And ambiguity is a statement or a figure of speech in which there is the possibility of more than one meaning of a particular line, of a particular quote, of a particular text. For example, I will quote here the famous line of Shakespeare. Shakespeare has written a drama, Hamlet, and the particular line is, to be or not to be, that is a question. So this line is perfectly suited here for the analysis of ambiguity. So this line can be used in different contexts. ये कई कॉन्टेक्स्ट्स में इस्तेमाल किया जा सकता है इस लाइन को. तो दैट्स वाई इट हैज़ अ मल्टी डायमेंशनल मीनिंग. So the line has not only a single meaning, it can create multiple meanings. That's why when it creates multiple meanings, that means it has an ambiguity, and that's what the literature needs. This is the today's lecture regarding the poetic techniques or the figure of speech that are usually used in poetry. But it's not necessary that these figure of speech will operate only in the poetry, but they will also be analyzed or be operated in the prose as well. Thank you for watching me this video, and inshallah within a couple of days I will be taking the new video lecture regarding the different genres of the poetry, different forms of the poetry, and you will be communicated shortly. Thank you very much.